We have looked at the elements of design and have seen how they serve as the basic tools for communicating the important context of a play to the audience on a subconscious level. We will now take a look at the principles of design. If the elements of design are the tools of the designer, then the principles of design serve as the method by which the designer employs those tools. The principles of design are the organizing factor of the elements of line, mass, texture, ornament, and color. When we consider the principles of design, we are looking at how a design organizes a visual pattern to create a unity through emphasis, rhythm, variation, contrast, harmony, proportion, and balance. As we have said in the section on the categories of art, theater is a performing art. However, the art of visual design is, by definition, a visual art. Sets and costumes adhere to the basic conventions of visual design in order to capture and hold our attention, and in doing so, create a visual unity. While there are many aspects of a set or costume design, all of these come together to create a single artifact. There is a visual logic of all of the elements of a set or costume design. For instance, if we create a costume design for a character in a play set in the 1940s, and then added a fanny pack as one of the aspects of the design, we would be adding an ornament which would defy the visual logic we are trying to create. This is an extreme example, but it is the task of the designer to make sure that all of the visual design creates a logical, visual unity. As with all art, a visual design attempts to create a recognizable pattern. This begins with a recurring visual theme. And it brings us to the principle of design we refer to as emphasis. Emphasis refers to an area or areas which serve as the basis of your visual design. They are the aspects of primary interest and, in a sense, they establish the foundation for the visual pattern you wish to create. One of the ways you can create a visual unity in your design is to consider the visual rhythm you are creating. It's interesting to note that the first two principles of design which we will consider are often associated with music, a non-visual performing art. A visual rhythm can be created with a visual motif. In our discussion of the elements of design, we spoke about how the element of ornament can create a visual rhythm, but so can the elements of line, mass, texture, and color. As a designer, it's your job to determine which will function to convey the proper context of your production. The rhythm of a design can become very interesting when a designer begins to investigate the principle of variation. Beethoven's famous Fifth Symphony opens with 4 notes. The next 4 notes which are played are a variation on these 4 notes. In fact, the opening section of this symphony continues to do as many variations on these 4 notes as is musically possible. The same can be done with the visual rhythm of a design. The principle of contrast suggests that a rhythm can be heightened by an occasional aspect or element which seems to contradict or conflict with the rhythm created and can create an interesting visual effect. An occasional contrast to the pattern can serve as a dynamic which, even though it doesn't go with the pattern, can actually heighten the rhythm you are trying to create. Or, two elements which stand in contrast to each other can have a very dramatic effect. With all of this talk of contrasting and varying elements of a visual pattern, it's important that they all create a harmony. Just like a barbershop quartet which performs with 4 contrasting octaves, the trick is to get them all to sound like they belong together.
Oh, there's no more I can say. Gray skies seem a million miles away. Now all I want to do is give my loving to you.
It's possible to zoom in on contrasting aspects, but from the house, they must all go together to create a cohesive whole. Proportion is another important principle of design. This speaks to the designer's task of bringing all of the elements of the design into their proper perspective. This speaks to how the line, mass, texture, ornament, and color all serve their purpose proportionally. Proportion also speaks to the physical size of the design. If the walls are tall and the doors aren't proportionally adjusted to meet this size, then a very specific statement will be made about the space. All of the elements of design must also be brought into proper balance. When we want to create emphasis in a particular visual item, we need to consider how to balance the pattern as it moves away and toward the fulcrum of the design. Symmetry is the creation of a perfect balance. A plank that rests at the center of a fulcrum creates a symmetrical balance. If the plank is moved off-center, then there is an asymmetrical balance. Some designers intentionally try to create an asymmetrical balance in their design. This may occur when the world of the play is out of balance, or if a character is unbalanced. So in summary, when we are putting together a visual design, it's not enough to think about what a character would wear or what a room that the character lives in would look like. We need to think about how to use the elements of design, line, mass, texture, ornament, and color in a proper and inventive organization through the principles of design: emphasis, rhythm, variation, contrast, harmony, proportion, and balance. We determine how to arrange an artistic pattern that will convey important cues about the character or space to the audience in both a conscious and subconscious level.